this week. Someone asked me this question the other day, and I said, that's such a good question. I'm going to answer this for you in the concept of a video. How do you know when an individual has been hexed? Okay, it's actually quite easy. But first we have to define the nature of being hexed, okay, first. Now, to be hexed, cursed, is to basically have a blockage on your energy system that directly impacts upon your nervous system, that puts you into, you wither away, basically. Now you become unhinged mentally, you lash out, you become the drowning man or drowning woman thing appears. But ultimately, the primary thing you notice of someone that's been hexed is that they go into negative charisma. They lose their presence in the world to all around them. I'll give you an example. Now, there's two ways this can happen. A direct hex from a powerful, witch, cunning folk, whatever, medicine man, that directly attacks the nervous system and puts and destroys their mental and physical faculties. Now, a high-profile version of that was, do you remember that film Coney 2012? Well, that guy Coney 2012, the guy who made that film was hexed by the guy Coney. And one day he's collecting awards for being the best documentary filmmaker. And the next day he's in public masturbating. He's running down the street screaming and masturbating and humping a car. That was, your man Coney has been known to be a powerful witch doctor, and he hexed the guy successfully. Why did the hex work? Because your man made a film attacking Coney. But Coney, the guy who runs these kind of child armies in Africa, did not personally go after the maker of that film. So therefore, when the maker of the film made the film a smear campaign of Coney, this is why a lot of people and journalists die young of cancer and stuff like that. They attack people who've done them no harm. Now, you could say, oh, well, he's a bad man. No, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Coney did him no personal harm. And your man Coney, under the rules of engagement, was able to hex him back. And look what happened to the guy. He was the darling of Hollywood in 1 minute, and the next minute he's running around screaming with his langer in his hand, masturbating in public, naked. That's negative charisma. That's when it goes into a kind of black hole thing. That's when you've been. That's a hex. That's when someone sits down and hexes you, or hexes someone. Okay, and puts all the work into that. I know how to do it. I'm not going to show you how because it's unethical. The second way is to build the psychic firewall. Now, a lot of people who are hexed have not been hexed by someone else. They've tried to destroy someone who did them no personal harm and just wants to be left alone, and it bounces back. And they go into and you'll see them. They go. There's a lot. You can always tell when they're cursed. When they've been. That doesn't matter if it's been direct hex or self-hexed from, attacking someone who did them no harm and very personal way, and it coming back to them. It comes, comes like this. There's the psychic deterioration, first of all. They will create a situation. There's an existential threat where they will create a you're on my side or you're against me dynamic. They will use blackmail, both emotional blackmail and direct blackmail. And you see, to try and save themselves. They deteriorate in age rapidly. That's a very. Did you see a man? He's a woman. Just look, Jesus Christ, age 10. No, we're not noticing that so much now because of the ping pong and the needlecraft. The needlecraft is making everyone age rapidly that has taken it. But So it was easy to tell that in the pre-needlecraft days, but a collapse in psychic energy. Their nervous system fails to work. The the mental illness and the madness, the smear campaigning, like the wild smear campaigns and the wild lies, are someone who's been hexed, and they're trying to desperately stay alive. And the lies becomes more and more ferocious, and more evil. The more the hex is eating them apart. And then finally they vanish to the world. Now, an obvious way to see this is online. You know, if they make a video, even if they frantically try to shop it around, no one really watches it. If they post to social media, no one likes them no one upticks them anymore or gives likes anymore. If they vanish, they become a non-entity. And when they eventually die, no one notices. It's like, you know who died last week? Who? Oh yeah, I remember that person. That's their demise. Because as the hex takes hold, there's only one way of escaping that, and that's for them to build a wall to protect themselves through no contact ever again. But what they do is they go after people they suspect have hexed them. But usually if hexed themselves, it's just bounced back. Or the person that bounced it back against them, the blowback one. And they become more frustrated because the person they're trying to take down only becomes more popular and loved. And they start looking. They just seem well. They just things are, they seem very well liked and very well respected and very well genuinely cared for. The person who's hexed is unloved by anyone. They just eventually that everything falls apart in their lives, and nothing gives them any satisfaction. They just are miserable wretches, and then they just vanish out of, and then no one cares. That's when someone's been either hexed directly, which is something you shouldn't do. Well, you can do it if you're in a really desperate situation, but if they have kids, don't do it. You can actually, because those things are hereditary, and but if you build a psychic firewall, you will bounce the hex back. How do you bounce the hex back? Ignore them. No contact ever again. You see, these borderline women who say, I've gone no contact, but if you go to their Facebook page, even 3 or 4 or 5 years, 10 years later, they still have the things attacking the husband and stuff like that. Or the ex-boyfriend or the person that they were obsessed with who abandoned them. And what happens is they just deteriorate. And they deteriorate because they're literally handing all their energy over to the person they're trying to destroy. This is why a lot of borderlines get cancer and die young, because they've given all their psychic life energy over to the people they hate. They haven't preserved it for themselves. That's kind of like that's what self-hexing is like. Their psychic energy has been channeled through anger and hatred at someone else, that it starts depleting them, and they're amazed that the person that they're hating, is doing so well. The reason why they're doing so well is because you're giving them their life force. So this is why if you hex someone who's not done you personally any harm, intentionally and on purpose, it'll only come back to you. Now, you can say, oh, well, they did this to me. But you have to carefully sit down. Like, I remember in the past I've wanted to do it, and I said, are they really deserving of this, or is it retaliation? Now, retaliation, is you'll see that people who retaliate are off. Another thing that the hex person does is play the victim. The hexed person and the doomed person, they're dead. They're finished. There's no hope for them. They're dead. What happens to them is that they'll attack someone first, right? And the other person will go, get this fucking idiot out of our life. And other people say, what's the story with him or her? Or just to fucking stay away from them. There's something not right there. And then they run out of people around them to champion them. And if there's anyone around them that they still have on their side, it's usually kept there through emotional or literal blackmail. So what happens then is, they begin to deteriorate big time, and they start wasting away, and I mean in every way, and they find it hard to concentrate and focus. But they know that they subconsciously know they've been hexed but that the hex has bounced back. So they start pretending that even though they started it, they start pretending that the person who had the hex bounced back off, that they attacked, is victimized. That's very common. I'm a victim of him. I'm a victim of her. But you attacked them first. Oh, but they said that's retaliation. They did not attack you initially. They probably kept their mouth shut, and they would have kept their mouth shut if you stupid fucks hadn't have actually had to just get on with your lives and moved on with your life. No, you had to start the war, and then everything falls apart over that. That's your fault. You started the war. Retaliation is not first strike. That's a golden rule. Retaliation is not first strike. And so they just waste away. They'll post stuff to social media, doesn't get any likes. God one. They just don't get any attention. They they vanish to the world. They could die in the apartment building they live in and no one would notice. They just vanish into oblivion. And they just go. They literally just go down, and they get quite ugly, quite detestable, and it eats them alive. They're never happy. And the only way that they can escape that is to recognize what they've done and then to atone for it. But they never do, because they're usually so far down the road. They're usually so far. Well, see, the atonement means lots of things, because they'll have gathered up allies. Oh, they're not allies. They're usually just like scumbags to, be their little army. But those little scumbag army doesn't care about them either. It's a fucking amazing thing to watch someone, I mean, I worked with this cunt, this asshole, and I saw, he went after me in the job. I sent it right back, and I was only a young lad. He literally, it was like he had AIDS. It was like he had AIDS, and then he had to leave the job. He couldn't do it anymore, and he kept trying to tell people towards the end, until he was literally escorted out the door by two. Literally, the management escorted him out the door, and and he went to a psychiatric hospital. And when he was being escorted out the door, I was just a young lad, and he pointed over at me. He said, that fucker there ruined my life. And I was like, no, asshole, you ruined your own life. All I did was protect myself in the same way. If you went to punch me, I'd have punched you back. That's all that happened. And the retaliatory punch wasn't the initial first attack. You picked on a young kid in an office that didn't know what he was doing, was trying to learn, and you bullied him. And you got away with it for a while. You were Jack the Lad for a while. You thought you were really clever. But towards the end, no one was talking to you. No one liked you. No one wanted to go lunch with you. You just dissolved, and you watched me move up in the esteemed eyes of everyone else in the office. And why do you think that happened? Because you gave me your life force. And what happened to you after you went through that door? I never checked. I've never Googled your name. You're gone. You don't exist. You stepped into the arena, and you were eaten by the lions. It's as simple as that. Don't ever get involved in it. And also the ones that were his cohorts, all end up ruined. It was awful. It was an evil thing they did. And everyone eventually saw it in the end. You cannot polish a turd by polishing harder. People will see you for what you are, and what the turd is for what it is. But it's amazing how that common. I'm sure all of you have stories like this in your life. Anger. You work with someone, or you're in a relationship with someone. You always seem to happen. But you'll notice, you'll notice people, they deteriorate rapidly. It's like they get no power, except things like hysteria and shouting and screaming and threatening and blackmailing, because they have no charisma. Where when you have charisma, you can walk into a room and everyone will turn and look at you, and not out of because you're beautiful or anything, because you have a magnetic quality, and you say, oh, I'd like to hang out with her. Oh, there's someone I'd like to hang out. And you can say, you can get with anything you want. If you're a negative charisma, you walk into a room and everyone looks away. And the only way you can get their attention is by screaming and shouting. And you'll see that. You see, it's, go to any political event where there's activists, either left wing or right wing, and they're ones that are screaming and shouting. You'll just actually see them, and observe them over time, you will see them dissolve. Because they're handing over the charisma and they're destroying their own life force. And they know they can't buy likability from others. They can't buy charisma, and they're in the it's like they become a charismatic black hole. But that's all, and it's really simple. There's the rule in life is, and I tell everybody this. Think about all the people in your life, right? And literally put them in two boxes. Do you feel comfortable around this person? And is your life being enhanced by knowing them, by having them in your life? Keep them. This person who may have initially been drawn to, has your life gotten worse? Have they made you feel more negative and dark, more paranoid, more nervous? Has it affected your balance being around them? Get rid of them. It's that simple. Find the tribe, find the others, find people, and if you see anyone who's acting in any way pathological and trying to stir up these things and this kind of stuff, if you're in the office, you're in work, in the factory, the office, or the shop, or the store, or whatever, and there's someone there who's always starting shit, stay the fuck away from them, even if they're not did anything bad to you personally, because they will drag you down with them. On the other hand, someone's nice and friendly and easygoing, hang out with them. That's really it. Life, that's what your purpose in life is. To improve your charisma and to be in a state of a dharma. And you do that by following your heart's desire, by following your will. Do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will. It's one of those most profound and beautiful things, that line. Follow your dharma, follow your bliss. Just don't be an asshole about it. And, show no consideration for others. Be considerate for others. And that's what these ones do. These ones who are wild and lashing out, they're not showing any and people, a normal healthy person looks at that and goes, geez, I'm not getting involved in that nut job. And then other similar pathologicals go down to the black hole of death with them. But that's how you know when someone's been hexed. They become socially persona non grata when they might have had some kind of social interactions. It's gone. They become obsessed with something or someone that they claim is responsible for it, an individual or a political philosophy or anything, and they go into the black hole of their own negative charisma. And again, the same thing again. Be that person who everyone says, what was it like to know that guy Johnny? And you say, he was all right, he wasn't like very well read, but he was very respectful and listened, and he always tried to be helpful and encouraging of people. What was your woman Susan like? She was cool. She was just a good person. Heart was in the right place, and she never, every time I met her, she always had a smile, and she was always friendly, and she was helpful when I needed help, and stayed out of my face the rest of the time. What more do you want? Be those people. Love you so. But remember, you'll always know the self-hexed and the hexed by the deterioration, their charismatic inversion, and their social isolation, because no one wants to be around someone who's cursed.